Who is the number one player in the Canadian Football League heading into a new season? Is it last year's leading rusher, Brady Oliveira, or his teammate quarterback Zach Collaros, who was number one the previous 2 years? Is it another QB, Chad Kelly? Suspended, yes, but coming off a year when he was the MOP, or Vernon Adams, the league's leading passer in 2023. Many other names are to be considered, and we're going to do that right now. As we continue a tradition here before a new CFL season begins, welcome to the Top 50 show. Rod Smith, along with Dave Naylor, Davis Sanchez, and Milt Stegall, the only one on the panel who gets to vote for every player, just to make sure he's covered.
Every single year, I vote for every single player. Every single year.
Okay, just so you know, so any players who want to question the list. Dave Naylor's commissioned this list every year now, and I'm always amazed when the votes are counted up. You think you'd know who would be number one, who'd be on that list, but it's not a slam dunk every year.
No, it's not. There's always some surprises. In fact, this year we have 6 players that got number one votes. I believe that's an all-time high. It just shows you, the diversity of opinion on these things. And every year, Rod, there's when the list comes out, there's always a player I look at and say, oh, he's not on my list.
Right.
And of course, there's guys that I look at and say, what? I can't believe he didn't make the master list.
Yeah. Well, look, it's top 50 players, right? So. Is a top 50 player most outstanding? Is it most valuable? That's all the conversation that takes place, and everybody has a different opinion of that.
And guys, they get motivated by this. I've heard some guys say, you didn't put me on the top 50. I'm going to show you why you should have put me on the top 50. So guys get motivated by this top 50 list.
Well, there are criteria to consider. It's not just picking top 50 players. We do narrow it down a bit for selection. Minimum number of players required for each position. That's part of it. A panel of experts asked to rank the top 40. It ends up being a 50, but you pick 40. And players are given point totals from 50 points, number 1, to 1 point, down to number 40 in the top 50. They end up making this list, and we're about to present it now, beginning with 50 to 31 with Matthew Shinetti.
Number 50, Sean Bain Jr., wide receiver, Saskatchewan Roughriders. Number 49, Anthony Lanier, defensive lineman, Saskatchewan Roughriders. Number 48, Adam Bighill, linebacker, Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Number 47, Patrick Neufeld, offensive lineman, Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Number 46, Drew Desjardins, offensive lineman, Ottawa Redblacks. Number 45, McLeod Bethel Thompson, quarterback, Edmonton Elks. Number 44, TJ Lee, defensive back, BC Lions. Number 43, Reggie Stubblefield, defensive back, Montreal Alouettes. Number 42, Bryce Carter, defensive lineman, Ottawa Redblacks. Number 41, Darnell Sankey, linebacker, Montreal Alouettes. Number 40, Mustafa Johnson, defensive lineman, Montreal Alouettes. Number 39, Stanley Bryant, offensive lineman, Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Number 38, James Butler, running back, Hamilton Tiger Cats. Number 37, Casey Sales, defensive lineman, Hamilton Tiger Cats. Number 36, Kevin Brown, running back, Edmonton Elks. Number 35, Jameer Thurman, linebacker, Saskatchewan Roughriders. Number 34, Dietrich Nichols, defensive back, Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Number 33, Trevor Harris, quarterback, Saskatchewan Roughriders. Number 32, Micah Awe, linebacker, Calgary Stampeders. Number 31, Brandon Revenberg, offensive lineman, Hamilton Tiger Cats.
So that's the first 20 of the 50, actually the last 20 of the 50. 50 counted down to 31. And already some names that are noticeable by who are there and who aren't there. What stood out to you, Chaz?
Yeah, for me, it's the quarterback. Macbeth was at 45. If you look at the importance on a team or importance of a player and how he impacts a team, it's the quarterback. That's the guy. And Macbeth, they did everything they could in Evans to get him there, basically coaxed him out of retirement. He's quarterbacks, to me, if you're a starting quarterback in this league and you're a guy that is a definitive starting quarterback, you got to be in the top 15 or top 10, in my opinion. Mac Beth should be way higher. He's a top 10 guy.
Well, for me, I want to talk about two cats who aren't on here. Maybe I'm giving it away because they're not on, higher on the list. But Sean Lemon, who changed the fortune of the Montreal Alouettes once he stepped on the field. In their first 5 games, they were on pace for 28 sacks. They finished with 41. He had 9 of them. And also, this man here, Trey Ford. He's not a top 10 player. Yes, he's not a top 20, not top 30, maybe not even top 40. But not being in the top 50 at all in the CFL, that's crazy. Yes, I know he's not a starting quarterback and he shouldn't be right now, but he's the most exciting player in this league. And the fact that he is not in the top 50, that's disturbing to me.
We hear a lot about how, the decline can come quickly for running backs. You've got a player, Kadeem Carey, number 3 on the list last year. Yeah. William Stanback, number 14. Now, neither of these guys are done, but neither of them are on this list. You look at a couple of running backs that are. Kevin Brown of the Edmonton Elks, James Butler of the Hamilton Tiger Cats. One of the things I like to do when I vote for this, I try to look at things that guys do really exceptionally well. James Butler gives you those tough yards. He also had 527 yards receiving out of the backfield, which is a huge element for a running back. You look at Kevin Brown, had the highest yards per carry average of all running backs in the CFL last year, 45 carries of 10 yards or longer. So he's got that lightning gear. That's why both those guys were on my list, and good to see them on the top 50.
And a point about what you say, McLeod Bethel-Thompson, if he should rank higher and gets a lot of playing time this year, that impacts the playing time, of course, of Trey Ford. And for Sean Lemon, you had made it clear the suspension right now, and that he is appealing, created a lot of uncertainty about him, but that wasn't supposed to affect the vote.
The rules are just who are the best players in the league. We do not factor in suspension.
Okay, so that's 50 to 31 coming up. The list will continue in the CFL Top 50 show. We will look at 30 down to 11, and receivers take center stage. Some big names out there, including Geno Lewis and Kenny Lawler. Stick around. Back after this. Oh, yes, a new CFL season is upon us. Week 1, Game 1, Grey Cup rematch. That's Thursday night in Winnipeg. The Owls and the Bombers, followed by the Ticats and Stamps on Friday night. The Riders and the Elks, and then the week wraps up at BMO Field in Toronto with the Argos up against Vernon Adams and the BC Lions. And now, Top 50 continues from 30 down to 11.
Number 30, Javon Leake, running back and return specialist, Edmonton Elks. Number 29, Demario Houston, defensive back, Calgary Stampeders. Number 28, Alexander Hollins, wide receiver, BC Lions. Number 27, Nick Dembski, wide receiver, Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Number 26, Jamal Peters, defensive back, Hamilton Tiger Cats. Number 25, Cameron Judge, linebacker, Calgary Stampeders. Number 24, Reggie Begelton, wide receiver, Calgary Stampeders. Number 23, Ryan Hunter, offensive lineman, Toronto Argonauts. Number 22, Tyrese Beverette, linebacker, Montreal Alouettes. Number 21, Jamarcus Hardrick, offensive lineman, Saskatchewan Roughriders. Number 20, Mike Rose, defensive lineman, Calgary Stampeders. Number 19, Cody Fajardo, quarterback, Montreal Alouettes. Number 18, Gary Peters, defensive back, BC Lions. Number 17, Jake Serezny, defensive lineman, Toronto Argonauts. Number 16, Eugene Lewis, wide receiver, Edmonton Elks. Number 15, Kenny Lawler, wide receiver, Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Number 14, Keon Hatcher, wide receiver, BC Lions. Number 13, AJ Ouellette, running back, Saskatchewan Roughriders. Number 12, Dejon Allen, offensive lineman, Toronto Argonauts. Number 11, Marc-Antoine Dequoy, defensive back, Montreal Alouettes.
So here is the position breakdown so far. 9 receivers leading the way along with linebackers, followed by defensive linemen, 8 of those, O-linemen 7, QBs 6, DBs 6, and then running backs at 5. So let's start right at the top of that list. Not only receivers, Dave Naylor, but big play receivers on that list.
Yeah, I always find receivers the hardest position to trim down and all this because there's so many great players in the Canadian Football League. Yeah, I love that 14-15 where you've got 15-6 where you've got Hollins, Lawler, and Geno Lewis. And that's what stands out about it. These are big play guys. And we saw what Hollins can do with his average more than 10 yards per catch. One of the things about Kenny Lawler and Geno Lewis in this, these guys each only played a dozen games last year. Sometimes it's hard to get into that top 20 when you don't have a full season resume from the year before. But I'll tell you, here's how productive those 2 receivers were at big plays. They had combined 98 catches last year. About 20% of the catches they had all season were to 30 yards or more. Wow. Incredibly productive, big play downfield receivers, Lawler and Geno Lewis, certainly.
So I polled some coaches, Dave, and receivers were, and I asked them, not including the quarterbacks, but who are the guys, if you need to have one guy on each side of the ball, who's the most important piece? So I polled some coaches, coordinators, and receivers. Everyone had wide receiver. As the number one thing on offense, wide receiver. I thought maybe some tackles, but wide receiver was the one. On defense, and this is a travesty, Mustafa Johnson, the best player on the team, best player on the Grey Cup championship team, what was Mustafa Johnson? 40. I mean, Mustafa Johnson is a top 10 player in this league, no question about it. It's because how he dominates. Marc-Antoine Ducroix, he might be the best safety in the league. Let's say he's the best safety in the league. He still shouldn't be at number 11. That's not a knock. It's just the position. At free safety, you can't impact the game. If you're a great free safety, which Antoine Ducroix has become, you can't impact the game. They'll just stay away from you.
Maybe his big plays impact the
big
vote?
Plays.
Yes. Absolutely. So let's just say this. This is what a defensive coordinator told me. He said, defensive tackles, because of some situations with quarterbacks, there's been some drop-off and some injuries and stuff has happened, interior pressure has become a huge problem. Guys can't handle it.
Right.
So when you have a defensive tackle that's dominant, it changes the whole defense. Mustafa Johnson should be a top 10 guy. It's a travesty, the fact that he's this low.
Yeah, you talk about dominant. Let's talk about the only dominant or only player from special teams on this list, and that's the Leaqualizer, Javon Leak. He's at 30. I had him a lot higher. This man changes the game like no other, and the Edmonton Elks are going to find out this year. You think about the Elks in their return game, who had one of the best returners in CFL history, Gizmo. I know he's been crying over the last 6-7 seasons because the return game has been abysmal. I mean, they had a return at the end of the year, the last quarter, the last game. But before that, they hadn't had a return since 2015. Insert Javon Leak. This total changes what they're going to do on special teams. He's the best return in the league by far, and at 30, I had him a lot higher.
Special Teams Player of the Year, and game breaker for the Toronto Argonauts. Well, stick around. The list will continue because we're about to get into the top 10. Still some big names out there as well, including the one who was number 1 the last 2 years, Zach Collaros. Running back Brady Oliveira as well. The list continues right after this. The team-by-team breakdown in the top 50. Winnipeg right at the top, followed by Montreal, Saskatchewan, and Toronto at 6. And down at the bottom of the list, Ottawa Redblacks with just 3 in the top 50. Now 10-4.
Number 10, Folarin Arumalade, defensive lineman, Toronto Argonauts.
And coming in was Folarin Arumalade, who just got to his passing arm before he could get rid of it.
My teammates started calling me flow sack artiste, so I let it stick. After you make artwork, make a masterpiece, you sign off on it.
Number 9, Willie Jefferson, defensive lineman, Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
I know how we do it. We coming out here to handle business.
Trying to escape it on the run to his left, trying to turn a corner, taken down on the play. Willie Jefferson was there to get him.
And he is the best in the business at getting it done.
Number 8, Winton McManus, linebacker, Toronto Argonauts.
Rid of it, intercepted. Winton McManus has it, and a big return, taking it all the way for a Toronto touchdown.
Number 7, Tim White, wide receiver, Hamilton Tiger Cats.
End zone, Tim White, touchdown again.
That's a big time
I just put into my mentality that we weren't going to be denied.
Number 6, Darius Pickett, defensive back, Ottawa Redblacks.
You can't forget Darius Pickett, who is as important to that defense.
Blitz coming, charging in is Darius Pickett, untouched.
Number 5, Chad Kelly, quarterback, Toronto Argonauts.
Airing it out, and it's caught by Brissett. 10-5, touchdown. Chad Kelly strikes.
All the hype about Chad Kelly is warranted.
Young Chad Kelly, he's showing that he belongs.
Go Argos.
Number 4, Dalton Schoen, wide receiver, Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
And that time you need your presence, so I got this for you, bro.
Down the field for Schoen. Got it. He'll take it down to the 20. Stays on his feet. And it's gone.
Claros to Schoen, I think you've heard that one before.
Milt, I think of all the choices, the one for Chad Kelly was the most complicated and unpredictable. He is the reigning MOP, and yet, because he's suspended for half of the season, some people didn't even have him on their ballot.
Which is ludicrous. When you look at the reigning MOP since 2015, they've been number 1 on our top 50 list, but for some reason, Chad Kelly is not there. And there are some obvious reasons, but it's still a little surprising that he's not the number 1 guy. So, you have to look at everything and decide why he's not the number 1 guy.
VA, Zach, and Chad Kelly have to go 1, 2, 3. I would say this, and I don't want to, it's not about money, but GMs pay contracts for a reason, and they pay guys a certain amount for a reason. Look where Chad Kelly is in the salary structure. He is valuable to that team. He's a top 3 guy. There's absolutely no question.
If we'd been doing this at the end of the last regular season, I would have had Chad Kelly as number 2 on my ballot and number 1 among quarterbacks. My ballot this year, he was 4th, and it had nothing to do with the suspension or any of that. It's the Eastern Final. Right. I mean, that was such an important game.
Wow.
And the variance between what we saw him do in the regular season and the way he performed in that Eastern Final, that moves him down a little bit of my vote.
You mentioned Fajardo earlier, too. You mentioned
Fajardo's the opposite, right?
Yeah.
If we did this at the end of the regular season, where's Cody Fajardo versus Chad Kelly? One moves up, one moves down. Yeah. One game. It was a big game.
It was a big game.
It was a big one.
It was a big game.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you mentioned Zach, you mentioned VA. There's another name, Brady Oliveira. They have not been named yet. And coming up, there are only 3 spots remaining in the top 50. Who will get number 1? No one has ever been number 1 on this list for 3 straight years. Could it be Zach Collaros again? As we finish up the list of the top players in the CFL, have a look at the odds for which team will be on top and win the Grey Cup in 2024. The favorite, Winnipeg, followed by BC, the defending champion Alouettes, the Argos, and then at the bottom of the list, the long shots, the Edmonton Elks, and the Ottawa Redblacks. And now, the top 3.
Number 3, Vernon Adams Jr., quarterback, BC Lions.
Looks to the corner for Hatcher. Yes, touchdown Lions.
This is a different Vernon Adams, and because of that, these BC Lions are a different team.
Number 2, Brady Oliveira, running back, Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Brady Oliveira, huge hole. Oliveira down to the 5. Why not? Welcome back to the Brady Oliveira show.
Game time, baby. Game time, baby. Let's go.
Number 1, Zach Collaros, quarterback, Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
He's a student of the game, and he's just a winner.
Wolotarski in the end zone. Defender falls. Touchdown.
Zach Collaros does it again.
Three straight years number 1 on our top 50 list. He's the first ever to do that, and he ties Bo Levi Mitchell for being ranked number 1 3 times in his career. And here he is now with teammate Brady Oliveira and John Liu.
Well, Zach, familiar territory for you. Brady, you rocketed up the leaderboard 46 places to number 2. Let's start with you, Zach. 3rd straight year that you've been voted number 1 in TSN's top 50. How does this honor sit with you?
I mean, it's an honor. It's a league full of great players, obviously, but anytime you get an honor like this, it's about the people around you. The guy to my right, obviously, our offensive line, our receivers. Everybody being on the same page and having the same goal week in and week out. So it's a testament to all those guys and the time that we all put in as a unit.
And Brady, for yourself, you're a runner-up as MOP, but top Canadian last year. How much did last season sort of set the table for this year and each subsequent year of your career now that you've set such a high bar?
Yeah, I mean, product of my environment, the guys around me, the coaches every single week, setting up a great game plan to allow us to go out there and play fast and execute at a high level. So definitely set a high level, got lots of the same guys back. So, we're just looking forward to another season.
I know that you guys would trade all your individual accolades for another championship ring. So with all the changes at the various positions of the Bombers this season, what's your early read on the team, Brady? You want to start?
Yeah, obviously, every year is going to be a new year, especially in this league. Lots of turnaround, but lots of continuity still within this locker room, and guys that are hungry obviously want to finish it off the right way this year. So yeah, we're going to take it week by week, come in and like I said, take in the game plan, execute at a high level, and just take this thing week by week.
Yeah, like Brady said, it's about the people in that locker room, and the culture that we've established here, and that we need to continue to grow. Whether that's in the meeting rooms, on the field, all those things. So we just need to continue to, learn the game together and get better every day.
A distinction, too, for Brady Oliveira as a Canadian, ranking number 2. It's only happened one other time. John Cornish, who's just a great career running back with the Calgary Stampeders, ranking number 2 on the list in 2015. So there you go. The top 3, I think many or most of us anyway, had these 3 at the top. Milt, how did this go with what you were thinking?
I actually have Brady number 1, but more so than that, I want to look at one individual on there, Vernon Adams. Yeah. And I'm pointing out Vernon Adams because this time next year, if Vernon Adams is not number 1, he should be disappointed. Not in the top 10, not in the top 5, not number 2, but number 1. He has everything in place for him to be the man this year, to take over this league and say, I'm the best player in this league. He has all the tools. We've seen all that. Yeah, we've seen him lead the league in passing yards, but he needs to be a complete player, and I think that happens this year, and I think this time next year, Vernon Adams will be number 1 on this list.
Milt, I also had Brady Oliveira number 1 on my list. Look, 2,000 yards is a big, big number. He had 1,500 and some rushing, 400 and some receiving. We saw him being the player who could set the tone for them early in games. He was the finisher. He got to the end zone, both catching the ball and running it. I said this a lot last season. Brady Oliveira did his job better than anybody in the Canadian Football League did their job last season. He was my number 1. I'm glad to see him back in Winnipeg. Don't mess with success. So often we see guys, trying to chase a little extra money, go somewhere else. It's just not the same. I think it's great for him and the Bombers that he's back there.
I know we don't have much time. I'm going to ask one question. Top 50 players, you guys look at most valuable player or the most outstanding when you look at the top players?
Outstanding.
You?
Outstanding.
Okay, so Brady Oliveira, you guys both think is the most outstanding player in this league?
Yes.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Well, I'll tell you what, every year there are questions about who we have in the top 50. Some prove us right, some prove us wrong. Ultimately, they all prove it on the field. Looking forward to the start of a new season. Thanks for watching the Top 50 Show on TSN.